wish someone told me these tips before I started university. It would have made my life a lot easier. These aren't your usual study tips, they're top secrets. So if you want to be successful at university, stay tuned. Read the syllabus for each class and mark the important assignment due dates and the exam dates in your calendar. It's also worth jotting down the percentage that each assignment or exam is worth. That way you can focus your time on those exams and assignments that are worth quite a bit of your overall grade. Some assignments can contribute to 30% of your overall class grade, so it's definitely worth putting a lot of time into those. Now, I'm not saying don't put time into the ones that are worth 5%, but if you are limited for time, then it is worth prioritizing and putting a little more detail in those ones that are worth quite a bit. Now, in terms of calendars, it really kind of depends if you have an Apple or you're using another product. But I would recommend the calendar that's on Apple, like the iCloud calendar. It's really quite useful. It's also worth color coding your calendar. So for a certain class, you can assign that a color, or you can color code by the type. So if it's an assignment, if it's an exam, if it's a practical. Now, after you've put in all the important assignment dates and exam dates into your calendar, now it's time to focus on the lectures. So I would recommend putting in the actual start and finish times for all your lectures into your calendar, because it can be very overwhelming when you have about, say, 8 classes and you're looking at a timetable for each class. So it's really a good idea to sort of marry them all up and put them on one calendar. So you should also set a little reminder on your phone before each lecture takes place. That way you have enough time to get there. So say set a little reminder, 20 minutes before the class starts. Another important thing to do is sync your devices. So when I was in university, I used an iPhone, a MacBook, and an Apple Watch. Those were sort of my go-to technology products. So I would make sure that they were all synced. That way, if there was a change in where the lecture was located, or if there was a change in the assignment due date, I could just update it on my phone or my laptop, and that way it would automatically change through all of them. So that will save you a lot of time. My next tip would be to make your lecture notes digital. So usually what happens is the prof will upload the lecture notes anywhere from a day to a week before the actual lecture. So usually I'd save that as a PowerPoint or as a PDF format, and then I'd attend the lecture and I'd bring the notes up on my laptop and I would type in the comments section a lot of extra things that the prof was, talking about. This is really beneficial because often the lecturer will speak really fast and you don't have enough time to write down in pen and paper. Sometimes the prof won't even upload the actual lecture notes until the start of the lecture. It is easier if you do your notes electronically. So my other tip is to create folders on your laptop for each class, and that way you can store your notes that you typed up into the appropriate folder, and you can even do subfolders. So for example, one for lecture notes, ones for assignments, practicals, and so on. And that way it is a lot easier to find the things that you're looking for, and you're not having to rummage through a binder or trying to find the document. So definitely keep it as a folder. So my next tip: after the lecture is done, make sure you spend time that night to go through the notes just to familiarize yourself with the topic and what went on in that day. That way when it comes to exam time, you won't be overwhelmed and it won't be like you're starting from scratch essentially. So I would recommend that you do that. So another thing you can do is create flashcards for, classes that require a lot of memorization. So I did use this technique quite a bit. So instead of using flashcards that, you buy from the dollar store, what I would do is I went to a website. It was called Quizlet. I'll put the link in the description below, but it's a free website where you can create and store your own digital flashcards. So it's really easy. You just type the front of the flashcard, you type the back of it, you create a set, and then you can just play it. And it's great when it comes to exam time. You can just flick through the flashcards that you've made. Nice, easy, stress-free way of studying. And you know, when you're out on your walk, you can, instead of listening to music, you can listen to the flashcards because it actually dictates your flashcards. So that's another great way to study if you can't stare at the screen any longer. So you can just listen to your flashcards. Another thing you can do, only if you have permission from your university and the professor who's doing the lecture, is voice record the entire lecture. So you can do this from an app on your phone, or if you have your own personal voice recorder. So this comes in handy if the lecturer speaks really, really fast and you need to pause and take a break, or if you're not a fast typer. And it's also a good idea, you know, if you need a break from staring at the computer all day and you want to just go on a walk, but you do feel guilty for not studying, you can just play the actual lecture and listen to it on your walk. Now, my next tip may sound a little silly, but watch YouTube videos. Now, I appreciate this does depend on the type of degree you are studying, and yes, of course, you can't rely on these videos that they are accurate. But to be honest, they were useful in sort of getting a general understanding of some topics that I was learning about, and if I wanted some visualization. So watching YouTube videos did help me quite a bit. Be careful, it is also a good way to fall asleep. So my next tip would be to switch it up. So you can't study in one spot the whole time. It does get a little boring. So what I used to do was I would go to the school library. I would go to, you know, various public libraries throughout the city. I'd also go to a lot of coffee shops. And when it was nice outside, I'd go study in the park. My next tip would be to work out before your lecture. Now, I know this can be difficult if you do have 8 a.m. lectures. Well, it was quite easy for me because I did live literally right across from a beautiful gym. But go work out before your class. You will feel so much better if you have a whole day of lectures ahead of you. You will feel energized, your brain will be more alert. So I would recommend doing that. My next tip would be is to have a good group of friends that you can study with and, you know, hang out with in university, because it does make a big difference, you know, when you can work on problems together, if you ever need help at all, or, you know, sharing notes as well if you're ill or something. So that definitely helped me throughout university, you know, having like a good group of friends. And you know that you do need to study by yourself, but you know, it's also great when you can study with friends. I know I found this particularly useful just before exam time. You know, we could study all day because we weren't bored and by ourselves. We could ask each other questions and we could anticipate certain exam questions, and you know, we were speaking topics out loud so that way they would stay in our memory. So that was really actually quite useful that we did that right before exams. I know this is a little, you know, your typical tip, but you do need to get the right amount of sleep. Now, I have to say, throughout my 4 or 5 years in university, I never pulled an all-nighter. I'm very impressed. I usually always went to bed at like, I don't know, 11 or so, but you don't need to pull any all-nighters if you have everything all planned out well. You really don't. So, well, that's from my experience anyways, but if you just do successful planning, you can have a normal sleep schedule. You can, you know, go to bed at 11, wake up at 6:30, go to the gym, then go to your lectures. It's probably one of the, you know, my top sort of tip that contributed to my success in university was having a schedule, you know, but also having time for myself. So, you know, time for proper sleep, time to go to the gym, time to travel. Like, I had everything all planned out. And, you know, I wasn't overwhelmed, and I gave myself the proper rest, you know, when I was tired that I did need. So you do need to take care of yourself throughout university. My next tip, I know this may sound a little ridiculous, but bring a hot drink to class. And you know, at the beginning of the lecture, it's so nice to have a sip of hot coffee. Just kind of sets the mood for the day. Or you can always, you know, go to Starbucks or Costa before your lecture. So I could give you another 100 tips, but I'll save that for another video. So thank you for watching, everyone, and I hope that some of these tips will help you in your future, and if you're in university now or you're thinking of attending. But let me know in the comments comment sections if you have any questions or any other future video ideas that you guys would like. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys next week with a new video. Bye!